a British couple who met 2 years ago in Australia, and now we're here to share our travel advice and our own personal experience to you on YouTube.
Yeah. So this is the first place of our Should You Visit series, and we are starting off with Sydney.
So Sydney is the biggest city in Australia and is situated in the state of New South Wales.
Sydney was the first place that we both went to after leaving the UK. I arrived there in April of 2022 and I spent 4 months living in Sydney.
And I arrived there in the end of July, which was winter, absolutely freezing. And I actually stayed for 2 weeks, which was enough. So yeah, what we're going to do first is we're going to just have a little discussion about our experience in Sydney, and then we're going to go on to some facts.
So yeah, I spent 4 months living there. Most of it was winter, so I do think that had a bit of an effect on my overall view of Sydney. I think it would have been different if I'd lived there in the summer.
I loved my experience in Sydney for 2 weeks because
I was good, yeah.
I was full of endorphins. It was the first place in Australia. I wasn't looking for work. I was just doing pure activities all the time. Yeah. So that's what made it really good. But it was freezing.
Yeah, my best bit of Sydney was the first couple of weeks. One, because it was the first place and I was so excited. But two, we weren't looking for work, so we were just relaxing. And it was, yeah, the warmest time when we were there, so we were just chilling on the beach. But not having any work or anything
makes the
made
difference.
it so much better. As soon as you've got to work, it instantly makes a place more shit.
Obviously,
doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So yeah, I basically arrived to Sydney and I did a tour. I was actually with a group for 2 weeks and we just did loads of fun activities, which I think if it was the other way around and I got to Sydney and I didn't know anyone or I didn't do a tour, I would have probably felt a bit overwhelmed. It's a big place to be. I think when I got to Sydney, it was actually one of them pinch me moments, like I'm in Australia, the Opera House is there, wow, I'm here.
It's the same for me.
Yeah.
So these are some of the top attractions that you can find in Sydney that we recommend you go and visit. So number one is the Opera House. It's pretty much the most famous thing in Australia. It's what you see on all the postcards and all the pictures when you Google Australia. So it's definitely worth visiting, whether you go in and watch a show or whether you just go and look at it from the outside like we did. It's, yeah, pretty amazing to see.
It's one of them pinch me moments that, I mean, Australia. Think of Finding Nemo and you just like,
yeah, innit?
when they see the Opera House.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a lot smaller.
Oh, I thought it was bigger.
Did you?
Yeah, a lot bigger.
I thought it was smaller than I expected. Well, you'd have to find out for yourself. The next one is the Harbour Bridge. Now, you can actually climb on this.
I wish I'd done that.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah, you can climb that actual right on the top bit, which looks crazy.
Scary.
If we went back to Sydney, I'd do that, 100%.
I wouldn't.
I'd make you do it.
But that's definitely one thing you should. One, I actually went under it on a boat tour, so I actually did that.
I walked over it.
I actually didn't walk over it.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, you should go and see the Harbour Bridge. That's another big attraction. It's just cool to see, or even climb up if you're crazy.
And the last attraction you should go and visit is Taronga Zoo. I didn't actually go there, you did.
It's so cool.
Which, it looked amazing.
I think the coolest part about it is that you go on a boat and then obviously when you're looking back you just see the whole of Sydney, and it's just it just looks really cool. But yeah, the zoo's really cool. So one of them things where you see all the Australian animals, like the koalas, kangaroos. Yeah, so if it's your first place that you've got to in Australia and you really want to see
the Australian wildlife straight away.
Feel the wildlife. Go to the zoo. Taronga Zoo is a great zoo. Yeah. One of them zoos they do look after the animals. There is plenty of other attractions we can go through, but we don't want to make the video long.
So here's 3.
They're the top 3 that you should do.
Anyway, now we're going to go on to our most overrated thing about Sydney.
So
this does not mean it's shit, it just means we think it's rated way more than it actually was. And that is Bondi Beach.
Which is why we didn't mention it in the top 3 attractions.
Yeah. We're not saying don't go and visit, because it is definitely worth visiting. However, there's way nicer beaches in Australia as well.
I just thought it was overrated.
It's probably one of the, it's not the worst, but I've seen better beaches in pretty much every single other city that we went to.
I liked Coogee Beach.
In Sydney?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good beach.
But even then, that's not, compared to like Perth and stuff.
True. I'm just saying in Sydney, like, I think that Coogee was probably
that's
better
the
than
thing.
Bondi.
Bondi's not even the best beach in Sydney, it's just the busiest.
I think it's just the most popular because of, you know, Bondi.
Yeah.
What's that film?
Bondi Rescue.
Bondi Rescue. I've never watched it, so I wasn't really that bothered, no.
But the area of Bondi is nice. There's some good little bars and restaurants, so it's a good vibe.
Yeah, good
but
vibes.
The actual beach is definitely overrated. There's way better beaches in Australia, and even in Sydney there's better beaches.
Yeah, and I've seen Bondi Beach at Christmas, and that looks too much for me. Too much. Anyway, but if that's what you like, that's okay. When should you visit Sydney? So don't be us, don't be me actually, and go in winter. I mean, it did have its perks because our group tour was very quiet.
And it's cheap.
And it's cheaper.
That's the
Way
only.
cheaper.
That's the only positives, to be honest.
If it's your first time in Australia and you're arriving in Sydney in winter, expect England weather.
It's very cold. It will shock you, especially by the water, because it's so windy.
Freezing. I arrived in my shorts thinking it was going to be sunny and hot.
You would do that.
I was so naive. So definitely I would say the best time to go is springtime. It's not as busy and it's not as hot.
It's still warm, but I think the summer in Sydney gets really humid. Yeah, you still get to enjoy the sun, but it's not crazy busy, and you get the slightly cheaper prices than you would at, say, Christmas time, because obviously Christmas time is summer in Australia, which makes it so expensive.
Don't we know? So springtime, September to November. Put it in your diary.
So where should you stay when you go to Sydney? There's a few different places. I actually stayed next to Bondi Beach, which was a good place to stay. I know I said it was overrated, but it's still a pretty cool place to stay. You stayed?
I stayed in the city centre next to Darling Harbour, which actually, to be honest, it weren't crazy busy. It weren't the worst place to stay.
That's one of the best places in the city to stay. Most of the city I would avoid because it's just offices and stuff like that.
And it's just chaos.
Just
like
chaos.
Chaotic. We were kind of just like off on a side little bit. So I actually stayed in the Nomads hostel. It was actually really nice. Very clean, nice hostel rooms.
I stayed in Noah's Backpackers at Bondi Beach. So funny because the rooms were full of cockroaches. It was an amazing hostel because it had like a rooftop where you could just chill. Just a 2-minute walk from the beach. It wasn't the cleanest hostel, but if you're looking for just the pure experience and just being right next to the beach and meeting loads of people, it's a great hostel. I don't even know if it's still there because I think they were planning to change owners or something.
But do they have a YHA there?
Yeah, YHA is one of the best hostels.
It's always a good hostel, isn't it?
One of the best hostel chains in Australia.
I think there'll be lots to choose from, but if you're looking for something a bit nicer, maybe go for an Airbnb, because I know that you can get probably cheapish Airbnbs, and I imagine that there's some nice places in Sydney. But in terms of location, definitely Bondi or Coogee, I'd say, would you?
Yeah, stick to the eastern suburbs because they're near the beaches.
Yeah.
It's a bit more expensive, but I guess if you're moving to Sydney, you do want that kind of beach life.
And similar people, like backpackers, if you are looking for that.
Yeah, I'd actually avoid most of the city because it is so busy and it's just offices and stuff.
City, it's just a city.
Manly's nice as well.
Yeah, Manly actually, I liked it over there.
Yeah, Manly's nice.
So Manly, Coogee or Bondi.
Yeah, bruv.
So how long should you stay in Sydney? Now, personally, I stayed 2 weeks and that was perfect for me because I got everything done, and if I wanted to have a rest day and just chill out one day, I had the chance to do that.
I was there 4 months, but I was working, so it's different when you're working.
Yeah,
If I wasn't working, I would have said, 2 to 3 weeks in the summer would have been good, because then, there's enough time to chill, but there's quite a lot to see.
There's a lot to see, because you can even go out of Sydney and go to the Blue Mountains.
Blue Mountains and stuff, yeah.
So, it's a big place to explore. New South Wales, so much to do, so many places to see.
But 2 to 3 weeks is probably best. You can do longer if you want, but minimum 2 weeks, I'd say.
I think minimum.
So how can you get to Sydney? Obviously, this depends where you are in the world. If you're from the UK, you need to fly to the other side of the world. So you're probably going to stop off once. I stopped in Singapore.
I stopped off 3 times.
3 times? That's because you went from Birmingham.
Birmingham.
So from the UK, you're looking at least 1 or 2 stops to get to Sydney, and the flight's going to be about 24 hours in total, including your stopover. If you're in Australia already, then you can get the Greyhound coach, can't you?
Yeah, Greyhound, or I think it was the Premier coach or something. So depending on where you are, you can drive, basically. So basically either flight or drive if you're in Australia.
Yeah, or a boat. Or any kind of cruise.
So, final and foremost, our overall rating and average opinion on Sydney.
What would your overall rating be?
My overall rating would be 7.5 from when I was there. If I was to do the same experience in the summer, I feel like it would push it to an 8.5. Because I had a great time.
Yeah, true.
There was so much to do. It was the first place I arrived in Australia, so it had my heart, but I wouldn't live there.
No, I agree. I live there and I definitely don't get the urge to go and live there again. My rating would be 7.5 as well. I agree, in the summer I'd probably push it to like an 8, but definitely wasn't my favourite city in Australia. It was good. It's definitely worth visiting.
I think overall, if you're coming to Australia for the first time, it's a great way to start your trip. There's so much to do there, but living there, I wouldn't fancy it. It's too busy. A lot of like touristy, very, very touristy for obvious reasons. Just gonna say more touristy because we lived in Perth and I didn't find that touristy at all.
If you like the beach lifestyle, you like being by the water and everything, and you want somewhere that's less busy, then I would recommend Perth. That's our favourite place, but it gave me Sydney vibes, but just way more toned down.
Yeah, like way more chilled out. You can breathe a little bit.
And better weather.
Obviously, there's not... The difference is, obviously, Sydney's famous for a lot of things, where Perth is more just...
And it's just out of the way.
Yeah, it's just out of the way. So overall, that was our own personal experience and opinion on Sydney, and whether you should visit Sydney, that is completely up to you, but we hope this video could help in some kind of way.
Yeah, if you have any more questions about Sydney, then leave them in the comments, because we definitely didn't cover everything.
There was a lot more to it, but we wanted to keep this video simple, short and snappy.
We're going to do more of these about all kinds of places that we've been to, so make sure you stay tuned.
Yeah, this was the first episode of a big series coming up. If you like what you see, please subscribe. And we will see you in the next video.